Ever get that feeling like maybe, just maybe, some classic novel is actually saying the same stuff as like, some seriously way out there cosmic
Oh,
philosophy?
absolutely. It's wild, right? How these completely different things end up kind of echoing each other.
So that's totally what we're doing today. We're throwing A Tale of Two Cities, like full-on Dickens, into the ring with, wait for it, The Law of One.
Okay, yeah, I see some eyebrows going up right now. But stick with us here because
Yep.
the Law of One is this collection of channeled information about, well, basically everything. It gets pretty deep.
And for all of you, our amazing listeners who are like, I want the knowledge, but make it snappy. That's why we do these deep dives, right? So today, we're going to see if there are any like totally unexpected insights hiding out when you put Dickens and this Law of One thing side by side. Because seriously, what could a story about like revolution back in the 1700s in France have to tell us about the nature of reality?
Right. But that's the beauty of it. We've got Dickens painting this crazy vivid picture of a society that's like totally coming apart at the seams, and then we've got this Law of One framework that's trying to explain, the universal principles behind everything.
Strap in. This could get a little mind-bendy.
Yeah, a little bit, but in the best way possible.
All right, let's get down to it. Literally, street level. A Tale of Two Cities. Dickens doesn't mess around when it comes to describing pre-revolutionary France. It's not just poverty. It's this feeling of like everything's decaying and everyone's suffering. You know that passage where he talks about the narrow winding streets full of offense and stench?
Yeah, and how all the little streets branching off are the same, all peopled by rags and
It's
nightcaps.
so visual, you know? He even says the shop signs are like, what was it? Grim illustrations of want.
It's like he's trying to make you feel how desperate it was, and it works.
Totally. And then there's that simmering rage among the common people, this feeling like they're about to snap. He talks about it as like what was it? Like a wild beast thought of the possibility of turning at bay.
He's so good at getting you right inside their heads,
Yeah.
making you understand why a revolution is basically inevitable. It's not just facts and dates, it's this whole atmosphere of like pressure building up.
Exactly. And then you've got this stark contrast, right? The aristocracy just floating along, completely oblivious in their little bubble of luxury, the whole Monsignor thing.
Oh yeah, Monsignor. Dickens really drives that point home. It's almost like he's saying, look at this ridiculous imbalance. This can't possibly last.
It's so in your face. And this is where the Law of One gets super interesting. Because one of its big ideas is that we, like humanity, are existing in this thing called third density.
Right, like a level of consciousness.
Mm.
Third density is where we start to become self-aware and, we have free will, but it's also where we experience duality. All those opposing forces, light and dark, good and evil, you name it.
Okay, so that makes sense. But how does that tie back to Dickens and the whole French Revolution thing?
Well, the Law of One has this core principle, they say, that service to others is ultimately the same as serving yourself, that all beings are like fundamentally interconnected. There's a quote that says, there is no similarity between others and ourselves. There is identity. There is completion and unity.
Whoa.
Right. It's heavy stuff. But think about it. The insane inequality that Dickens is showing us, couldn't that be seen as like a massive distortion within third density? Like we're forgetting or straight up ignoring this fundamental oneness.
So, like, the gap between the haves and the have-nots, that's us messing up this whole interconnectedness thing.
That's one way to look at it, yeah. If you think about someone like the Marquis in A Tale of Two Cities, he has zero regard for human life. It's like he's completely disconnected from everyone else's reality.
Yeah, that guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what the Law of One suggests is that when we stray too far from this principle of unity, it creates suffering and chaos. It's like a system that's out of balance, which is, exactly what Dickens is showing us in the lead up to the revolution.
Yeah.
So the question is, are these societal meltdowns like a symptom of us forgetting that we're all connected?
Deep. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the idea of imprisonment. A Tale of Two Cities, that's all about imprisonment, right? Dr. Manette stuck in the Bastille for years, Gabelle gets thrown in prison, even Darnay ends up there.
And then you've got characters like Sydney Carton. He's imprisoned by his own, like, self-doubt. He basically says he's incapable of his own help and his own happiness. And Dr. Manette, when he first gets out, he's almost a shell of a person. Remember, they call him the shoemaker. It's like his identity got lost in prison.
Right, right. And then it's Lucy's love that brings him back. It's so powerful how she, like, helps him heal and find himself again. His years in prison, as horrible as they were, they end up giving him this unique strength. He calls it what was it? a power that has brought us through the barrier.
I love that line. And it's interesting to think about Carton, too. He's imprisoned by his own self-perception, the fact that he can't see his own worth.
And now I'm thinking about the law of one again, because they talk about the idea of catalyst, which is basically any experience, good or bad, that helps you learn and grow spiritually, in third density.
So like leveling up in a video game. You need those challenges to get stronger.
Exactly. So all the crazy stuff that happens to the characters in A Tale of Two Cities, those are like big time catalysts, even though it's rough. Like Dr. Manette's imprisonment, that's obviously traumatic, but it also forces him to become incredibly resilient.
Yeah, it's almost like a dark catalyst, but it still leads to like a kind of awakening.
And then you have Lucy. She's like a walking, talking, positive catalyst, not just for her father, but for Carton, too. She gives him hope, shows him that maybe things could be different for him.
So it's not just individual characters, though. I mean, even the messed up state of society itself, that's a catalyst. It's a huge negative one, pushing everyone towards the revolution. It's like the pressure cooker finally explodes.
Boom. It makes you wonder, like, if all the difficult times in our own lives, those could be seen as catalysts, too, right? Maybe they're chances to grow and understand things in a new way.
That's a powerful way to look at it. Reframing challenges as opportunities. It might not be easy, but it could be helpful.
Definitely something to think about. Okay, moving on. Let's get into sacrifice and service. This is where Sydney Carton really shines. His decision to give his life to save Lucy and her family, that's just
Huge.
huge. And he knows it's a big deal. He even says that Lucy has been the last dream of my soul. Even though Carton is, he's a complicated guy, he's got his flaws, he still chooses to do this incredibly selfless thing.
And that sacrifice, it hits us so hard because it speaks to that part of us that, wants to be better. It shows that even in the darkest moments, we're capable of incredible compassion. And the law of one, it actually points to service to others as like a key path for spiritual growth. It's about choosing to focus on the well-being of the whole, not just yourself.
Okay, and I remember the law of one talks about the harvest, right? Which happens at the end of a cycle. And they say that people who are more oriented towards service to others, or on the flip side, service to self, they might end up in different, vibratory distortions. Like they're on different levels of being or understanding.
Right. And the idea is that the choices we make, like our dominant patterns of behavior, actually shape our energy. And that energy determines where we end up. So you could argue that Carton, with his selfless sacrifice, and Madame Defarge, with her relentless pursuit of revenge, they represent those two different paths. And the harvest is this natural sorting that happens based on those choices.
So Carton, choosing love and selflessness, he's aligning with that service to others energy. While Madame Defarge, consumed by hate and wanting payback, that's more of a service to self vibe.
Exactly. And it's important to remember, the law of one isn't saying one path is good and the other is bad in a simplistic way. It's more nuanced than that. They say both paths offer a way for the creator to experience itself. But the journey and the destination, those are different.
It's like two sides of the same coin, maybe.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to, that stark duality we see everywhere in A Tale of Two Cities. Love versus hate, sacrifice versus revenge, light versus darkness. Even Dr. Manette coming back from this totally broken place like a resurrection.
That duality is everywhere in third density, according to the law of one. It's like this playground of contrasts. And it's through experiencing those opposites that we learn and make choices and hopefully start to grasp the nature of reality.
But then the law of one throws in this curveball, right? Because its central idea is that all things are one, that all beings are one. It's saying that deep down, everything is interconnected. And that's the truth.
And that's where things get really interesting when you look at it alongside A Tale of Two Cities. Because Dickens is showing us a world that's completely fractured. Class warfare, personal vendettas, it's all about separation.
It makes you think a lot of the suffering in Dickens' world, maybe that's because they've lost sight of that fundamental unity. What if the aristocracy really understood that they were connected to the people who were starving? Do you think things would have played out differently?
That's a huge question.
Yeah.
And the law of one actually takes it a step further. They say that any negativity we direct towards others, we're actually directing it towards ourselves.
Yeah.
Because of that oneness. There's a line that says, there is no similarity between others and ourselves. There is identity.
So they all had hate and violence in A Tale of Two Cities. In a way, they're doing it to themselves.
You could definitely see it that way. If the law of one is right, and we are all one, then the pain that the common people are feeling, the aristocracy is feeling it too.
Yeah.
Maybe not consciously, but on a deeper level.
So let's recap. We went deep into A Tale of Two Cities and The Law of One. Two totally different sources, but we found some interesting overlaps. Dickens' portrayal of a society falling apart that kind of echoes the Law of One's idea of third density distortions. The struggles that the characters go through, those line up with the whole catalyst concept. And the choices they make, those reflect the principles of polarity and spiritual growth. But on the flip side, the divisions in the novel really contrast with the Law of One's big idea of unity.
We're basically trying to give you a crash course in these complex ideas without overloading you. Hopefully it's been thought-provoking so far.
For sure. And to leave you with something to really chew on, we were thinking, what if you applied those principles of unity and polarity from the Law of One to A Tale of Two Cities? How would that change your understanding of social justice and personal transformation and, the power of sacrifice?
It's like a whole new lens to look through.
Uh,
And not just for A Tale of Two Cities, but maybe for our own lives and the world we live in today.
Right. Like how much of the conflict and division we see around us is because we're forgetting that we're all part of the same thing.
That's something we all need to think about. And if you're interested in exploring these ideas further, we definitely recommend checking out both The Tale of Two Cities and The Law of One for yourself. There's so much depth there waiting to be discovered.
Happy reading.
Happy pondering.